But, alas, what poor woman is ever taught that she should have a higher design than to get her a husband? Truth is strong, and sometime or other will prevail. How can you be content to be in the world like tulips in a garden, to make a fine show, and be good for nothing? Ignorance and a narrow education lay the foundation of vice, and imitation and custom rear it up. Women need not take up with mean things, since, if they are not wanting to themselves, they are capable of the best. God is his own design and end, and that there is no other worthy of him. Hitherto, I have courted truth with a kind of romantic passion, in spite of all difficulties and discouragements. For knowledge is thought so unnecessary an accomplishment for a woman that few will give themselves the trouble to assist us in the attainment of it. Nor can the apostle mean that Eve only sinned, or that she only was deceived. For if Adam sinned willfully and knowingly, he became the greater transgressor. The scum of the people are most tyrannical when they get the power, and treat their betters with the greatest insolence. Upon the principles of reason, the good of many is preferable to the good of a few or of one. A lasting good is to be preferred before a temporary, the public before the private. It is not the head, but the heart that is the seat of atheism. None of us, whether men or women, but have so good an opinion of our own conduct as to believe we are fit, if not to direct others, at least to govern ourselves. Women are not so well united as to form an insurrection. They are for the most part wise enough to love their chains and to discern how becomingly they fit. Although it has been said by men of more wit than wisdom, and perhaps more malice than either, that women are naturally incapable of acting prudently, or that they are necessarily determined to folly, I must by no means grant it. Everybody has so good an opinion of their own understanding as to think their own way the best. Everyone knows that the mind will not be kept from contemplating what it loves in the midst of crowds and business. Hence come those frequent absences so observable in conversation. For whilst the body is confined to present company, the mind is flown to that which it delights in. None of God's creatures absolutely considered are in their own nature contemptible. The meanest fly, the poorest insect has its use and virtue. For certainly there cannot be a higher pleasure than to think that we love and are beloved by the most amiable and best being. If God had not intended that women should use their reason, he would not have given them any, for he does nothing in vain. Marry for love and heroic action, which makes a mighty noise in the world, partly because of its rarity and partly in regard of its extravagancy. That which has not a real excellency and value in itself, entertains no longer than the giddy humor which recommended it to us holds. If all men are born free, how is it that all women are born slaves? The span of life is too short to be trifled away in unconcerning and unprofitable matters. If a woman can neither love nor honor, she does ill in promising to obey. 'Tis very great pity that they who are so apt to overrate themselves in smaller matters should, where it most concerns them to know and stand upon their value, be so insensible of their own worth. The design of rhetoric is to remove those prejudices that lie in the way of truth, to reduce the passions to the government of reasons, to place our subject in a right light, and excite our hearers to a due consideration of it. We ought as much as we can to endeavor the perfecting of our beings, and that we be as happy as possibly we may. Women are from their very infancy debarred those advantages with the want of which they are afterwards reproached. Unhappy is that grandeur which makes us too great to be good, and that wit which sets us at a distance from true wisdom. We must think what we say and mean what we profess. We all agree that it's fit to be as happy as we can, and we need no instructor to teach us this knowledge. 'Tis born with us and is inseparable from our being, but we very much need to be informed what is the true way to happiness. To all the rest of his absurdities, for vice is always unreasonable, he adds one more, who expects that virtue from another which he won't practice himself. How can a man respect his wife when he has a contemptible opinion of her and her sex? Your glass will not do you half so much service as a serious reflection on your own minds. The steps to folly as well as sin are gradual and almost imperceptible, and when we are once on the decline, we go down, we go down, we go down without. Why is slavery so much condemned and strove against in one case, and so highly applauded and held so necessary and so sacred in another? Certain I am that Christian religion does nowhere allow rebellion. He who will be just must be forced to acknowledge that neither sex are always in the right. If none were to marry, but men of strict virtue and honor, I doubt the world would be but thinly peopled. That man indeed can never be good at heart, who is full of himself and his own endowments. The relation we bear to the wisdom of the Father, the Son of his love, gives us indeed a dignity which otherwise we have no pretense to. It makes us something considerable, even in God's eyes. The soul debases herself when she sets her affections on anything but her Creator. We may not commit a lesser sin under pretense to avoid a greater, but we may, nay, we ought to endure the greatest pain and grief rather than commit the least sin. Whilst our hearts are violently set upon anything, there is no convincing us that we shall ever be of another mind. To plead for the oppressed and to defend the weak seem to me a generous undertaking, for though it may be secure, 'tis not always honorable to run over to the strongest party.